So I was watching a movie the other day, a newer movie, and it got me thinking, are there any good prequels? Yes, we all know there are some fantastic sequels out there in the movie world, but is there any good prequels? And I gotta tell you, I don't think there is. So the movie I was watching was From the World of John Wick, Ballerina. You know, that movie that came out earlier this year and everybody kind of forgot that it came out and nobody really cared about it. It's just kind of a sloppy movie. And it's just a mess. It's bad acting, sloppy cinematography, and the story's just so convoluted. Like, there was no reason to make this movie as a prequel mixed into the John Wick universe. Just make this story not part of that. So it got me thinking about prequels. So let me know in the comments what prequel you think is good. But I'm going to list quite a few here and tell you why I don't think they're very good. I went deep diving into the internet to find out what movie prequel people think is good. And now I'm going to tell you why I don't think it's good and why I think prequels overall are just super unnecessary. So let's start with X-Men First Class. It's one that I saw on a ton of lists about the best prequels ever made. But let's be honest here. X-Men First Class was never meant to be a prequel. It was meant to be a reboot for the entire franchise. It only became a prequel when Days of Future Past came out and retconned the entire thing to be connected to the original X-Men movie from the year 2000 and those characters, those actors. But what it did wrong was now it messed up the entire timeline. None of it made any sense. How does James McAvoy become Sir Patrick Stewart in less than 20 years? So X-Men First Class, although it might be a good movie, it's not a good prequel. Another one I saw on the list a lot was Rogue One, a Star Wars story. Don't get me wrong, this movie was semi-interesting, but it had no stakes. And I feel like if you have a movie that has no stakes, then what's the point of making that movie? Rogue One, all of those characters don't appear in any other Star Wars property, so we knew going in exactly what was going to happen at the end. And was anybody really clamoring for, how did they get the Death Star plans? No, we kind of just accepted it in the original Star Wars movie. They had them. They got them some way, and they used them. Rogue One is just hit or miss, and I think it misses more often than it hits. Another newer movie that everybody seemed to really enjoy, and they keep calling it a prequel, but let's be honest guys, it's not a prequel, is Prey, the new Predator movie. It's not a prequel to the original Predator. It's just another Predator movie that takes place years and years and years before the original movie. It's not really setting up the original movie, it's not connected to the original movie, there's a few Easter eggs in it, but overall it's just not a prequel. Sorry, it's just not. Bumblebee, the Transformers prequel, is interesting. I think it's an okay movie. It was better than a lot of the Michael Bay films, but at the end of the day it also kind of ruins the lore of the Michael Bay films. In 2007, when they first arrived, it felt like they were new to Earth. Like they were still kind of figuring stuff out. They were putting it all together. But this movie's like, nah, they've been here for 30 years. Okay, sounds great. Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. That's one that I saw listed a lot as well. And let's be honest with ourselves, it's probably the worst of the original trilogy. If you like it, that's okay. I think there's a lot of fun in it. But did you know that it was a prequel? Were you ever told? Did anybody understand that? The timeline of the Indiana Jones movies is all messed up. Yes, Temple of Doom is a prequel to Raiders of the Lost Ark. And yet, Indy sees all this voodoo stuff happening in Temple of Doom, and then in Raiders of the Lost Ark, he doesn't believe in any of that. So, is the character not remembering what happened in his last journey? Just doesn't really make sense as a prequel. Furiosa was a movie that just came out last year, and it was okay. It was a good movie, but 2.5 hours was way too long. Furiosa, the story was not what we wanted. I didn't need to see her as a kid. I wanted to see Charlize Theron come back and do more Furiosa stuff. They just missed the mark big on that one. Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. That's the Hunger Games new prequel about President Snow. Again, over 2.5 hours long with an incoherent story. I'm sure all of the Hunger Games fans found things to like about it, but at the end of the day, it's just honestly not a good movie and not a good prequel. Cruella, I saw on a ton of lists of some of the best prequels of all time. And are you serious right now? This is the problem I have with Cruella, is that character, Cruella de Vil, will go on to unalive dogs, to murder dogs. And in this movie, they're trying to make her a sympathetic character. Are you kidding me? No way, never gonna happen. We all know where she ends up. Does it really matter where she came from? Alien Covenant and Prometheus. Lately, people have been looking back on these ones and going, you know what? Maybe they weren't as bad as we thought. But that's just time separating us from the fact that they were not good. They just weren't. Final Destination 5 is another one that I saw a lot of people listing. The twist ending that reveals the movie being a prequel to one of the previous Final Destination movies is the only thing ever talked about with that one. Because the hour and a half before that moment is mediocre at best. I just don't understand prequels. Why do studios continue to think that we want to go back in time to learn more about the characters that we already liked? Look at Solo, a Star Wars story. Han Solo was a very interesting character. Going back and seeing how he got there was something that fans had theorized about for quite a while. But when you make a definitive story of this is Han Solo, you kind of lose some of the audience. Because maybe it's not what we thought. Maybe it's not what we wanted. And yet, they continue to do this over and over and over again. And you have to retcon some of the stuff from the original films just to make your prequel make sense. And one other thing I really dislike about prequels. When a prequel is set 20 years before the original movie, or whenever, but it was made 20 years after the original movie, or even 10, you can tell that the technology, that the world is very different. It's very new. It's more modern. And yet this is a story that's supposed to be going back in time. Make it make sense, because I can't wrap my head around it. So let me know in the comments below if there are any prequels that you think are worthy of being attached to the original movie or the original series. And let's stick to just movies. There's actually a few good TV shows out there, Andor being one of them, but that's a whole nother story for another time. So let me know. And until I see you again, just remember, be good to yourself, kind to others, and keep watching movies.